Let me describe someone you probably know. They're talented, maybe more talented than most people around them. They have ideas, good ones. They've started things. They had moments where they felt that spark, that clarity of, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then nothing. Not because life destroyed them. Not because they ran out of opportunities. Because they couldn't stay consistent for more than 2 weeks. Sound familiar? Maybe that person is someone close to you. Maybe, and I want you to be honest with yourself right now, maybe that person is you. You start strong. You burn hot. And then something pulls you off track. A bad day, a distraction, a moment of doubt. And suddenly the thing you were building is sitting there unfinished, while you scroll through other people's results wondering why it isn't working for you. Here is the answer. And it's not what most people want to hear. It's not your talent that's failing you. It's not your strategy. It's not your timing or your luck or the algorithm or the economy. It's your discipline, or more precisely, the absence of it. Discipline is not a personality trait you either have or don't. It is a skill, a trainable, buildable, expandable skill. And the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, spent their entire lives mapping exactly how it works and what it costs to build it. Today I'm going to give you 10 Stoic habits of discipline that will change the way you operate. Not motivational theory, not empty quotes, but the actual mental architecture of someone who becomes so consistent, so focused, so internally driven, that success stops being something they chase and starts being something that finds them. Stay until lesson 8, because that's the one that separates people who want discipline from people who actually build it. Most videos never mention it. Let's begin. Most people think discipline is about willpower. They wake up in the morning and try to force themselves, through sheer mental effort, to do what they know they should do. And some mornings it works. And some mornings it doesn't. And they call themselves lazy on the mornings it doesn't. But here's what the Stoics understood that the willpower crowd doesn't. Discipline is not something you summon. It's something you design. Marcus Aurelius didn't wake up every morning to a blank slate and hope for the best. He designed his days. He set his intentions in writing the night before in his private journal. Not to impress anyone, not for posterity, just to know with clarity what was required of him tomorrow. He wrote about what kind of person he wanted to be that day, what he was likely to face, how he would respond. By the time morning arrived, the decision was already made. This is the first and most foundational habit of discipline, and almost nobody does it. Think about what happens when you wake up without a plan. Your phone tells you what to look at. Your hunger tells you what to eat. Your mood tells you what to work on. And your mood, in the morning before coffee, is not your best advisor. Within the first 30 minutes, you've already been pulled in 4 directions by forces outside yourself. You haven't made a single disciplined choice yet, and the day is already controlling you. Now think about what happens when you wake up with a plan, specifically one you wrote last night, when you were calm and clear and thinking from your values rather than your impulses. The decision is already made. The work is already chosen. All you have to do is execute what your better self already decided. Seneca wrote, "Let all your efforts be directed to something. Let it keep that end in view." The key word is directed, before the day begins, not during it. Because during the day you are in the battle. And in the battle, you cannot also be the general every night, before sleep, before your phone, before anything else. Write 3 things. 1. The single most important thing I will do tomorrow. 2. The time I will start it. 3. The person I will be while doing it. Not a to-do list. Not 20 tasks. 3 answers. Then put the phone down. Tomorrow, your disciplined self is waiting for you to show up. And now it knows exactly when to hear something nobody tells you about success. The version of it you see, the results, the recognition, the achievement. That's not where it was built. It was built in the hours nobody saw. The early morning before anyone was watching. The late night after everyone else had stopped. The Tuesday afternoon when there was no deadline, no accountability, no external pressure to perform. Just you, alone, choose to show up anyway. That's where discipline actually lives. Not in the dramatic moments of decision. In the invisible, unglamorous, unrewarded hours of consistent work. Most people can perform when someone is watching. Most people can show up when there's pressure. when the deadline is tomorrow, when someone is expecting results, when failure will be public. Almost anyone can find the motivation, but take away the audience. Take away the deadline. Give someone a free afternoon with no consequences and no one watching, and you'll see exactly how much discipline they actually have. Epictetus made a distinction that I want you to think about carefully. He separated people who do things for the appearance of virtue from people who do things because of the love of virtue itself. In modern language, there are people who work hard when someone might notice, and people who work hard because the work itself matters to them. The first group will always be at the mercy of external motivation. The moment the audience disappears, so does their consistency. The second group, the ones who have learned to love invisible hours, become unstoppable, because nothing can take their motivation away. It lives inside them, not outside them. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, pages and pages, that were never meant for anyone else. He was working on himself in the dark, building his character in private, not because it would be rewarded, because it was right. Those journals are now among the most read philosophical texts in human history. But he didn't write them to be read. He wrote them because the work mattered, whether anyone saw it or not. This week, identify one thing you only do when someone might notice, and do it once when absolutely no one is watching. No post about it. No mention of it. Just do it, and let the doing be enough. Notice how that feels. Notice if it feels different, harder, or strangely more satisfying. That feeling is the beginning of real discipline. The first hour of your day is a war, not a metaphor, an actual competition between the person you're trying to become and every force in your environment that wants to pull you away from that. Your phone wants your attention. Your comfort wants you to stay in bed. Your anxiety wants you to check the news, the messages, the notifications. The algorithm wants 30 minutes of your morning before you've made a single intentional choice. And if you let any of those forces win, if you reach for phone before you've done one thing for yourself, you've already lost the first battle. And how you fight the first battle sets the tone for everything that follows. The Stoics were obsessive about mornings. Marcus Aurelius wrote his most important reflections at dawn. Epictetus taught his students to begin each day with philosophical reflection before engaging with the world. Seneca wrote letters and meditations in the early hours before his public duties began. They weren't morning people by accident. They were morning people by decision, because they understood that the morning is the only moment in the day when you are still ahead of the world's demands. After the first hour, the world will come for you. Emails, problems, people who need things, decisions that require your attention. The current of daily life will pull you along whether you're ready or not. But in that first hour, before any of it arrives, you have a window, a rare, brief window where the only agenda is yours. What you do in that window determines who you are for the rest of the day. If you spend it reacting, checking, scrolling, responding, you train your brain that its job is to react to others. And that's exactly what we'll do all day. If you spend it creating, moving, thinking, preparing, you train your brain that its job is to act with intention. And that's what it will do. Marcus Aurelius began every morning by reminding himself of what kind of man he wanted to be that day. Patient with difficult people, focused on what mattered, grounded in what was in his control. He set his identity before the world got a chance to shake it. For the next 7 days, no phone for the first 30 minutes after waking. None. Instead, drink water, move your body for 5 minutes, review what you decided last night, and begin. That's it. No complex ritual. No hour-long morning routine. Just 30 minutes of being ahead of the world instead of behind it. 7 days. Watch what it does to the rest of your hours. There's one task on your list right now that you have been avoiding. You know exactly which one it is. I don't need to describe it. The moment I said it, it appeared in your mind. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been postponing. Maybe it's the part of your work that requires the most focus, and you keep doing the easier things first. Maybe it's the project that actually matters, the one that could change things, sitting unstarted while you stay busy with things that feel productive but aren't. You know what it is. And here's what's happening because you keep avoiding it. It's draining you, even when you're not working on it. Even when you're successfully distracting yourself, part of your mental energy is being used to avoid it. It sits in the background like an open tab, quietly consuming RAM, slowing everything else down. Seneca described this precisely. He wrote about people who were always busy but never productive, always in motion but never advancing, moving constantly to avoid the one thing that actually needed to be done. He called it the most exhausting way to live, not because of the work being done, but because of the work being avoided. The Stoics had a principle: do what is necessary before what is comfortable, not because suffering is virtuous, not because discomfort is the goal, but because necessary things have a weight to them. And if you carry that weight all day while doing everything else, you exhaust yourself twice, once from the work you did and once from the way of the thing you didn't do. But if you do the hard thing first, the necessary thing, the thing that actually matters, something shifts, the weight lifts, the rest of the day feels lighter, faster, more open, because you've already done the thing that was costing you energy just by existing undone. Marcus Aurelius wrote about facing each day as if it were his last chance to act well, not in a morbid way, in a prioritizing way. If today were the only day I had, what would actually matter? The hard thing. Almost always the hard thing. Tomorrow morning, before you check anything, before you do the easy tasks, before you warm up with smaller work, start with the one thing you've been avoiding, not for the whole day, just for 30 minutes. Set a timer. You don't have to finish it. You just have to start, because starting is the entire battle. Once you're in it, momentum carries you. 30 minutes on the hard thing first. Every day, watch how fast things change. You have had this experience. You felt genuinely motivated. You made a real decision. This time it's different. This time I'm actually going to do it. You felt the conviction in your chest. You meant it. And 2 weeks later, you were back where you started. Not because you were weak, not because you lied to yourself, but because you tried to run on motivation. And motivation, no matter how real it feels in the moment, is not a reliable fuel source. Motivation is a weather pattern. Some days it shows up, some days it doesn't. Some mornings you wake up fired up, some mornings you wake up in the fog. And if your discipline requires you to feel motivated before you work, you will work inconsistently. Guaranteed. The Stoics didn't talk about motivation. They talked about virtue, specifically about doing what is right regardless of how you feel about doing it. Marcus Aurelius woke up on days he didn't want to get up. He wrote about it explicitly. The bed feeling good, the day feeling heavy, the pull toward comfort. And then he asked himself, is it consistent with my nature, with my purpose, with the person I'm trying to be to stay here? The answer was always no. Not because he was superhuman, because he had a system, a set of commitments and structures that made the right action the easiest action. That's what systems do. They remove the daily decision. When you have to decide every morning whether to exercise, you will lose that decision on the days when you're tired, stressed, or unmotivated. But when exercise is simply what happens at 6 a.m., no decision, no negotiation, just execution, you almost always do it, because a decision was made once at the system level, not remade every day at the willpower level. Epictetus taught, do not rely on what you feel to determine what you do. Rely on what you have decided. Feeling and deciding are two different things, and discipline lives in the deciding. Take the one behavior you most want to be consistent at, one, and attach it to something that already happens every day. After I wake up, I will do X. After I eat lunch, I will do Y. After I close my laptop, I will do Z. This is called habit stacking, and it works because you're not adding a new decision. You're attaching a new behavior to an existing anchor. The anchor already happens. The behavior follows automatically. One behavior, one anchor, 1 week. That's it. Let me tell you something that sounds insane in 2025. Boredom is one of the most powerful tools you have for building discipline, and you've been running from it your entire life. Every moment of boredom, every cue, every quiet moment, every gap between tasks, you fill it instantly, reflexively, phone out, content in, silence eliminated. And in doing so, you've trained your brain to believe that discomfort must always be relieved immediately, that any friction, even a mild friction of having nothing to do for 30 seconds, must be escaped as fast as possible. Now apply that training to your work. The moment your work gets hard, the moment it requires focus that doesn't come easily, or patience when things aren't moving fast, or persistence through confusion, your brain recognizes that feeling. It's the same feeling as boredom, and has been trained to escape that feeling immediately. So you switch tabs, you check your phone, you take a break you didn't earn. Not because you're lazy, because your brain has been conditioned to flee discomfort before it can become productive. The Stoics practice what they called voluntary discomfort, deliberately sitting with friction, with boredom, with the urge to do something easier. Not because suffering is noble, but because tolerating discomfort is a muscle. And if you never exercise it, it atrophies. Seneca practiced going days with minimal food, sleeping on hard surfaces, wearing simple clothing, not to punish himself, but to prove to himself that he could tolerate discomfort without being destroyed by it, to know in his body and his mind that he was not at the mercy of his comfort. You don't need to sleep on the floor, but you do need to stop running from boredom, because on the other side of boredom is focus, real, deep, uninterrupted focus, the kind that produces a work that actually changes things. And you can only get there by passing through the discomfort that comes before it. Once a day, pick one 10-minute block and do nothing. No phone, no music, no podcast. Just sit. Don't meditate. Don't journal. Just be bored. Let the discomfort exist without escaping it. Then go back to your work. Notice what happens to your focus when you've just proven to your brain that boredom cannot hurt you. There are people in your life right now who are making you less disciplined. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but their habits, their conversations, their relationship with effort and consistency. It's contagious, and you've been breathing it in. You spend 3 hours with someone who complains constantly. You leave feeling heavier, more negative, more convinced that things are harder than they are. You spend an afternoon with someone who is undisciplined, who sleeps late, avoids hard work, justifies their stagnation with elaborate excuses, and somehow their philosophy starts to feel reasonable. This is not weakness on your part. This is how humans are wired. We synchronize with the people around us. It's a survival mechanism that served us well in tribes, align with a group, stay cohesive, survive together. But in a world where your immediate circle may not be moving in the direction you want to go, that synchronization is pulling you backward. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this carefully. He identified people in his own life, even within his royal court, who were corrosive to his character, and he made deliberate choices about how much access they had to him. Not cruelty, curation. Epictetus was even blunter. He said, "Show me who you spend time with, and I will show you who you are becoming." Not who you were, who you are becoming. Present tense. Ongoing. Every hour you spend with someone is an hour of their influence on your mindset, your standards, your beliefs about what's possible and what's acceptable. Choose accordingly. This doesn't mean abandoning people you care about. It doesn't mean becoming cold or elitist. It means being honest with yourself privately about which relationships are lifting you and which are lowering your standard, and then adjusting the dosage. Write down the 5 people you spend the most time with. Next to each name, write one word that describes the dominant energy they bring to your life. Motivated, complaining, building, stagnant, growing, negative, disciplined, avoidant. Look at that list. You are becoming an average of those words. Is that who you want to be? If not, you don't have to cut anyone off. Just deliberately increase time with the ones pulling you up and decrease time with the ones pulling you down. Small adjustments. Enormous long-term results. That I told you at the beginning that lesson 8 is the one that separates people who want discipline from people who actually build it. Here it is. Starting is easy. Everyone starts. The gym is full in January. New projects launch every week. Journals get opened, courses get purchased, resolutions get made, routines get designed. Finishing is a discipline nobody has. And I don't just mean finishing big projects. I mean finishing small ones. The book you started 3 months ago and stopped at page 60. The workout you cut short because it got hard. The task you began and then quietly let die without ever officially deciding to quit. Every unfinished thing in your life is teaching your brain something. It's teaching it that starting doesn't require following through. That commitment is optional. That when something gets difficult or boring or slow, stopping is a valid option. And your brain learns this lesson well. So well that it begins to apply it automatically. Starting becomes meaningless because both you and your brain know, underneath every intention, that finishing is not actually required. This is why so many talented people produce nothing. Not because they can't start, because they've unconsciously trained themselves that starting and finishing are unrelated events. The Stoics talked about completion, about seeing a thing through to its end, as a form of integrity, not just honesty with others, but honesty with yourself. When you say you will do something and then don't, even if no one else knows, you have broken a contract with yourself. And every broken contract erodes your self-trust. Slowly and visibly, but it erodes it. Marcus Aurelius wrote about acting fully, completely, not beginning something and leaving it halfway. He described incompletion as a form of self-betrayal. And when you lose trust in yourself, when deep down you know you don't finish things, your discipline collapses. Because discipline requires believing that your commitments mean something. The moment you stop believing that, every new commitment feels hollow before it's even made. This week, before starting anything new, finish one thing you've already started. Not a huge project, something small. The book, the draft, the task that's 80% done and has been sitting there for 2 weeks. Finish it, not perfectly, just completely. Feel what that does to your self-trust. Feel the small but real restoration of believing that when you start something, you see it through. Do this repeatedly. Make finishing a non-negotiable habit, and watch how your relationship with starting changes completely. Here's a question most people never ask themselves seriously. Who are you when no one is defining you? Not your job title, not your relationship status, not your results, your reputation, your recent failures or successes. Strip all of that away. Who are you? Because here's the truth, and this is perhaps the most important thing I'll say in this entire video. Your behavior will always align with your identity. Always. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, you'll find evidence for that every day and you will act accordingly. Not because you're weak, because your actions are following your identity, and your identity says discipline is hard for you. But if you shift the identity, if you genuinely begin to see yourself as someone who is disciplined, who finishes what they start, who does a hard thing first, who keeps their word to themselves, your behavior begins to follow that identity instead. This is not positive thinking. This is how identity works. Marcus Aurelius understood this profoundly. When he woke each morning feeling unmotivated, he didn't try to motivate himself. He reminded himself of who he was, a philosopher, a leader, a man committed to virtue. And then he acted from that identity. The feeling didn't have to change. The identity was enough. Epictetus, a man who was enslaved, who had no external power, no freedom, no status, built an identity entirely from the inside. He decided who he was not based on his circumstances, but despite them. And from that internal identity, he became one of the most powerful philosophical minds in history. Your circumstances do not determine your identity, but your identity will absolutely determine how you respond to your circumstances. Write this sentence and finish it. I am someone who, not who you want to be someday, who you are deciding to be now. I am someone who keeps their commitments. I am someone who does the work even when it's hard. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who shows up every day. Write it. Read it every morning. Not as an affirmation, as a reminder of the identity you have already chosen. Then act from it. When something challenges your discipline, don't ask how you feel about it. Ask, what would the person I described in that sentence do? Then do that. Everything we've covered today, the preparation the night before, the invisible hours, the first hour, the hard thing first, the systems over motivation, the tolerance for boredom, the circle, the finishing, the identity, all of it leads here, to the point where discipline is no longer something you do. It's who you are. There's a version of you, and I want you to genuinely imagine this person, because they're not as far from you as you think. Where the right action is the automatic action. Where showing up is not a battle, not a negotiation, not a daily struggle against your impulses. Where it is simply what you do, the way breathing is simply what you do, That version of you is not superhuman. They are not without doubt or difficulty or bad days, but they have built discipline so deeply into their daily structure, through the habits, the systems, the identity, that it no longer requires the same effort it once did. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal every morning because he was fighting himself into it. After years of practice, it was simply what Marcus Aurelius did in the morning. The discipline had become the identity, and the identity had become effortless. This is a final and most important truth about discipline. In the beginning, it is effort against resistance. You are pushing against your old habits, your comfort, your impulses. It is hard. It should be hard. That hardness is a forge. But over time, through repetition, through system building, through identity shifting, the resistance reduces, not to zero, but to manageable, to workable, to something you can move through without the war. And then one day you realize you are not chasing success anymore. You have become the kind of person that success is drawn to, because success, real, lasting, meaningful success, is not random. It follows people who show up consistently, who do the hard work whether anyone sees it or not, who finish what they start, who build systems that keep them moving on the days motivation disappears. It follows disciplined people, not as a reward for their struggle, as a natural consequence of who they become. Look back at all 10 habits from today. Pick the one that you've been avoiding most, the one that made you slightly uncomfortable when I described it. That discomfort is telling you something. It's pointing at the gap between where you are and where you're trying to go. Start there, not with the easy habit, with the uncomfortable one. That's where your growth actually is. You came into this video looking for discipline, but what you've actually been building through every lesson today is something deeper than discipline. You've been building a version of yourself that operates from the inside out, not driven by mood, not dependent on motivation, not performing for an audience, just moving consistently in the direction of who you decided to be. Let me say what these 10 habits actually are. Strip down, prepare the night before, do the work nobody sees, own your first hour, do the hard thing first, build systems, not intentions, use boredom as a weapon, curate your circle, finish what you start, choose your identity, make discipline your default. These are not 10 separate habits. They are one decision, made 10 different ways, every single day. The decision to take yourself seriously, not to wait until you feel ready, not to start when circumstances are perfect, not to become disciplined someday. Eventually, when it gets easier. Now, with what you have, as who you are, the Stoics did not have easier lives than yours. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, wars, betrayal, and the death of his children. Epictetus was enslaved. Seneca was exiled and eventually ordered to die. They were not disciplined because life was kind to them. They were disciplined because they decided, long before they needed to be, who they were going to be when life got hard. You have just made the same decision. Now all that's left is to live it. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but consistently, deliberately, one disciplined action at a time, until the person you've been describing becomes a person you simply are. That person doesn't chase success. That person walks forward every day, building something real, and success follows. It always follows. Which of these 10 habits are you starting tomorrow? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.